Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. If the sun were replaced by a black hole of equal mass, Earth and the other planets would maintain their current orbits since gravity depends on mass and distance, not volume. The black hole would have a radius of 1.9 miles due to its high density. The only small inconvenience would be that there would be no visible light. While coffee and spicy food are very popular among humans, caffeine is actually a plant's defense mechanism that can paralyze insects that consume it, and 90% of herbivores tend to avoid it. Meanwhile, capsaicin, the compound that makes chili peppers spicy to protect themselves, affects all mammals but not birds. In the Peruvian Andes, there is a 92-foot bridge made of grass or Andean straw called Queshuachaca that has connected communities over the Apurimac River since the 15th century. Every June, it is rebuilt using the original technique, braiding ropes by hand for 3 days, and thanks to the twisting of the fibers, it can support a large amount of weight. In Korea, there is a celebration every April 14th that is considered the anti-Valentine's Day, called Black Day, where single people who did not receive gifts on earlier dates gather and eat a dish of noodles with black sauce and complain about love. It emerged as a response to White Day on March 14th, when men are expected to give gifts in return to women who gave them chocolates on Valentine's Day. According to food labeling regulations in the United States, if a product has less than 0.5 grams of an ingredient, it can be rounded down and listed as 0. Because of this, Tic Tac candies state on their label that they contain 0 sugar, even though each unit contains 0.017 ounces. Technically, they are 100% sugar. According to catalogs, the Lego piece that appears most often in current sets is the 1x2 plate, which is widely used for detailing constructions and making connections. The 1x1 plate is also among the most produced pieces. To produce 1 tablespoon of honey, different bees must collectively fly a total of around 2,485 miles, visiting about 90,000 flowers in total. This estimate is based on observations and is an approximation. Producing honey is one of the most impressive examples of teamwork in nature. It was discovered that dolphins intentionally hit or chew on poisonous pufferfish to get high, instantly losing their chances of obtaining their driver's licenses. There is a flower with white petals that turn transparent when they get wet. Some call it the skeleton flower. I would call it the glass flower. In 2014, police in the Netherlands managed to capture people who were growing marijuana. They succeeded because they noticed that their house was the only roof without snow, revealing the temperature-controlled room. All the spies Hitler thought he had in England during the Second World War were actually double agents working for the British government. There are ants that can live up to 27 years. In reality, that longevity has been recorded mainly in queens of certain species, not in workers, which usually live much less. Geckos have millions of microscopic hairs on their feet that have a special chemical composition that helps them climb walls and hang from a single foot. A man in San Francisco saved an endangered species of butterflies because he planted rare plants in his garden and then sent the cocoons to the botanical center, where they began to recover. In the year 2000, Taliban leader Mohammed Omar banned opium production in Afghanistan, which caused the global supply of heroin to drop by 70%. If the Apollo 11 moon landing hoax theory were real, then there would have to be at least 400,000 people involved and keeping the secret. The space program that carried out the mission, led by the organization NASA, involved hundreds of thousands of engineers, technicians, and contractors. In addition, universities and private companies participated, which would make it practically impossible to maintain a conspiracy of such magnitude for decades without credible leaks about Apollo 11. The name of the Canary Islands does not come from the birds, but from dogs. Its name comes from the Latin Canariae Insulae, which means Island of the Dogs. This is because of the large canines found there by a Roman expedition, although it is believed that they were not exactly dogs being referred to, but rather a species of large seal. Later, the Canary birds were named after the islands. Although Scotland has the highest proportion of redheads according to its population at 13%, followed by Ireland with 10%, the country with the most redheads in absolute numbers is the United States, with between 7 and 20 million. The 1957 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham came with a minibar integrated into the front dashboard. It included glasses, a cocktail shaker, and even liquor bottles. The glasses stayed in place because they had a magnet. Other Rolls-Royce models or customized limousines also offered this feature, but only in the back seats. The involuntary jerk or jolt we sometimes feel just before falling asleep, as if we were falling into a void, is called a hypnic jerk or sleep myoclonus. It affects many people and is completely normal. It is believed to be the brain checking that the body is still alive as it relaxes. Pareidolia is a psychological phenomenon in which the brain detects familiar patterns, such as faces, where none actually exist. From just a few lines to more complex shapes, they can evoke different emotions. It is believed to be an evolutionary trait that persisted because it was useful for survival, helping us see whether there was a threat nearby. About 300 million years ago, there were giant insects, similar to modern dragonflies or anisopterans, called protodonata, which could measure up to 28 inches, similar to an eagle. They were that size because at that time, besides the fact that birds did not yet exist and therefore had no predators, the air contained more than 30% oxygen, which greatly favored their growth. The more oxygen, the larger animals can become. The custom of dividing the day into 24 hours comes from ancient Egypt, where they divided the day into 12 hours of light and 12 of darkness, guided by 12 decans, which are stars that appeared sequentially at night. They measured time during the day with sundials. Later, the Greeks adopted it, and the Romans popularized it. The base 60 system for minutes and seconds was an invention of the Babylonians. Many beekeepers usually earn more money renting out bees than selling honey, since they are essential for crop pollination during flowering. But doing this requires more logistics. They need trucks, and the bees must receive proper care, since they can experience a lot of stress from the travel. Snails can have up to 14,000 teeth, but even so, if you pour salt on them, they melt. In reality, what happens is that salt causes a dehydration process through osmosis. By rapidly losing water from their bodies, the snail contracts and can die if the exposure is prolonged. Wealthy inhabitants of ancient Egypt used neck rests instead of pillows to preserve their complicated hairstyles. It took the creator of the Rubik's Cube, Erno Rubik, almost 1 month to solve his creation for the first time. Now it is common for speed solvers to do it in less than 10 seconds. In 2005, a fortune cookie company called Wanton Food managed to guess the lottery numbers. There were 110 winners, which caused the police to open a fraud investigation. It turned out that the person who wrote it had simply guessed the number. It is said that humans have the largest brain compared to the size of our body. But in reality, ants are the ones with that distinction, and they are more intelligent than you think. Although their individual capacity is limited, as a colony they can coordinate, divide tasks, and solve complex problems through chemical communication and collective work. In the illustration of the toilet paper patent made in 1891, you can see the correct way to hang toilet paper, putting an end to years of debate. If you are hanging it that way, you have been wrong your entire life. There are places in Africa that no longer want clothing donations because they have caused the local industry to collapse. The massive arrival of used garments from Western countries, sold at very low prices, has made it difficult for local manufacturers and merchants to compete. Some governments have tried to regulate or limit these imports to protect jobs and encourage the development of their own textile industry. Avocados never ripen while they are on the trees. Farmers can leave them there and keep them fresh for more than 6 months. They begin to ripen only after being harvested, when they produce ethylene, a plant hormone that activates the process. That is why in supermarkets they are usually placed next to bananas, since bananas release ethylene and accelerate their ripening. During Prohibition in the United States, bootleggers used cow hoof shoes so they would not leave human footprints and would not be discovered by the police. Duck Hunt is actually a 2-player game. The second controller can control the ducks. While the first player uses the gun to shoot, the second can move the duck to dodge the shots, something many players never discovered. It was a hidden feature that made matches more challenging and fun. Chimpanzees can communicate using sign language, but they do not understand the concept of asking questions. They have never tried to learn things by asking humans or other animals. That is the main difference we have with them. In studies with trained primates, it has been observed that they can request objects or express desires, but they do not formulate questions to obtain new information, something that in humans appears from early childhood and is linked to the development of curiosity and cumulative culture. Monster Energy and other similar energy drink brands make cans filled with water and give them to celebrities and rock bands so it looks like they are actually drinking those beverages. This is done to avoid excessive caffeine and sugar consumption during concerts, interviews, or long recording sessions, since these drinks can cause dehydration, nervousness, or vocal problems. In addition, this allows them to maintain the advertising image without affecting performance. Many brands have registered ownership of a specific color. For example, the brown of UPS, the blue of Tiffany, the orange of Home Depot, the pink of Barbie, the yellow of 3M Post-it notes, the yellow-green of John Deere tractors and machinery, and the purple inhalers of GSK, among others. If you publish a book in Norway, the government will buy 1,000 copies and distribute them to bookstores throughout the country. And if it is a children's book, it will buy 1,500. This policy is part of a cultural program that aims to support national authors and ensure equitable access to reading, even in small and remote communities, thereby strengthening the publishing industry and reading habits. The Singer Building in New York, which was demolished in 1967, became the tallest building in the world when it was constructed in 1908. It reached an approximate height of 613 feet and served as the headquarters of the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Although its record lasted only 1 year, it marked the beginning of the race to build taller and taller in Manhattan. The superhero The Shield has a great similarity to Captain America. Both had a shield with patriotic motifs, fought the same enemies, and obtained their powers in similar ways. Even though The Shield was released a few months earlier, the creators of The Shield even threatened to sue Marvel, so Captain America's shield changed to a circular shape starting with issue number 2. The Chinese film Ne Zha 2 from 2025 became the highest-grossing film in the history of China, as well as the highest-grossing animated film overall, with $2.2 billion in revenue. An English-dubbed version and other language versions will be released soon. Horseshoe crabs have eyes on their tails. In reality, in addition to their main eyes, they have several simple eyes distributed across their shell, and also photoreceptors near the tail that detect changes in light. They do not form images like normal eyes, but they help them orient themselves, synchronize reproduction with the tides, and perceive movement in their environment. The Crocodylus niloticus can hold its breath for up to 2 hours while waiting for prey to arrive. At rest, it significantly reduces its heart rate and remains almost motionless under the water, barely showing its eyes and nostrils. However, when it is active or fighting, that time is considerably reduced. This ability allows it to ambush its prey very efficiently in African rivers and lakes. The mechanical seed drill, invented by Jethro Tull in 1701, changed planting forever. It dispensed seeds and deposited them in rows at a constant depth and then covered them. It was the beginning of agricultural mechanization. The band Jethro Tull is named in honor of this inventor. The comic or manga market in Japan reached record revenue of more than 700 billion yen in 2024. Of that amount, digital sales now dominate printed editions, accounting for approximately 70%. The next countries where manga sells the most after Japan are France and the United States. Alcohol is considered a substance that provides an advantage in shooting competitions. Therefore, it is classified as doping. In certain precision sports, it can temporarily reduce fine tremor and anxiety, which could improve stability when aiming. For that reason, anti-doping authorities have gone as far as prohibiting it in specific disciplines, although excessive consumption seriously affects coordination and judgment. In the 1950s, they tried to domesticate foxes in the Soviet Union to study how humans managed to domesticate wolves. Because of this, there are now domesticated foxes that can be kept as pets in Russia. Toward the end of the 15th century, someone fell into a cavity on the Esquiline, an area of Rome, and accidentally discovered the palace Domus Aurea, built by Emperor Nero centuries earlier. Upon hearing about this, artists such as Raphael, Michelangelo, and Pinturicchio decided to descend with ropes to copy the frescoes they found. This place served as inspiration for many works during the Renaissance. In 1996, Norwegian explorer Børge Ausland completed the first solo crossing of Antarctica from coast to coast, nearly 1,865 miles. Years later, in 2001, he did the same at the North Pole. He crossed from Siberia to Canada on foot. The Russians arrived 12 days late to the London Olympics of 1908 because they were using the Julian calendar instead of the one we all use, the Gregorian calendar, which are almost the same but different. The chess term checkmate comes from the Arabic term shah mat, which means the king is dead. The expression passed from Persian to Arabic and then to Spanish through medieval influence in the Iberian Peninsula. In reality, its more precise meaning is the king is helpless or defeated, which reflects the final and inevitable moment of the game. New York City subway trains model R32 entered service in 1964 and remained in operation until 2022, with nearly 58 years of service, far beyond their expected lifespan. These trains stood out for their high build quality. When they were retired, they were turned into artificial coral reefs in the Atlantic Ocean. The Barkley Marathons in Tennessee, United States, is considered the most difficult race in the world. Participants must run around 99 miles through forests, trails, and changes in elevation, all in less than 60 hours. Runners must navigate with maps and find pages hidden in books as proof. Since 1995, only 20 runners have completed it. Reading text is one of the least effective ways to learn. Putting things into practice or using images or videos is much better. Various studies on learning suggest that retention improves when multiple senses are combined and when the student actively participates, for example, by practicing, explaining what was learned, or solving problems. Even so, reading is still useful if it is accompanied by reflection and application. On the island of Crete in Greece, there are 40 million olive trees, approximately 60 for each resident. Users of Google Earth and Google Maps found in a remote place in Kazakhstan a pentagram symbol drawn on the ground with a diameter of 1,200 feet. This symbol has many meanings, but many associate it with evil. After investigating, they realized it was simply the layout of a star-shaped park. According to research, sleeping helps the brain reorganize memories, eliminating irrelevant details and putting everything in order, which helps you learn things better or have a greater ability to solve problems the next day. That means that if you fall asleep after watching this video, you will remember all the facts more easily. We have more than 80 billion neurons, but in our galaxy, there are between 200 billion and 400 billion stars. There is a town called Zalipie in Poland, where the vast majority of houses are covered in flower paintings. The tradition was strengthened to help with the negative psychological effects of the Second World War. The farfisa organ is an electronic, but not digital, musical instrument. It uses oscillators and analog circuits to generate sounds and is polyphonic, allowing multiple notes to be played at once. It has buttons and tabs to switch between different types of sound. The popular song Jerk It Out by Caesars uses this instrument in its main riff. A shrimp-like crustacean that is almost transparent was discovered in the depths of the sea. It is called cystosoma, and most of its head is occupied by its eyes, which help it see in the limited light that reaches its habitat, between 656 and 2,953 feet deep. Of the 10 largest statues in the world, 8 are Buddhas. Many of them are located in Asian countries such as China, Thailand, Japan, and Myanmar, where Buddhism has a deep cultural and religious tradition. These monumental sculptures often exceed 328 feet in height and represent not only spiritual devotion, but also national pride and tourist appeal. After the movie Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was released and became famous, the number of archaeology students in universities increased, as did the sales of archaeologist hats. In 1947, in Canada, the price of a chocolate bar was raised from 5 to 8 cents. As a result, about 200 outraged children organized a protest in front of the government building, causing activities to be suspended for an entire day. This event is known as the Chocolate Bar Strike. In 2013, a man bought a house in Minnesota, United States, for $10,000. During a renovation, he discovered behind a wall Action Comics #1, the first appearance of Superman in one of the most valuable comics. When he showed it to a relative, that person tried to take it and damaged the cover, reducing its value by $75,000. In the end, he managed to sell it at auction for $137,000. After the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963, Martin Luther King told his wife that the same thing was going to happen to him because he said society was already very disturbed. And he was right. He was assassinated in 1968. 50% of people believe that bad weather can affect cloud storage services offered by many companies, but in reality, it has nothing to do with actual clouds. In 2003, a Boeing 727 disappeared from the airport in Luanda, Angola, without authorization, without a flight plan, and without contact with the control tower. It was piloted by an American aviation technician without specific training for that model. To this day, neither the plane nor the pilot have been found. It is considered one of the greatest mysteries in aviation. When the first Costco store opened in China, in Shanghai in 2019, it became a popular destination for taking selfies. People even went dressed in American style. Due to the franchise's popularity, there are now 17 Costco stores in that country, and up to 2 open each year. A popular souvenir that tourists buy when they visit the United States is the red plastic cups used at parties. They became famous for appearing in teen movies and television series, where they became a symbol of college gatherings. Although they are common and inexpensive items, for many visitors, they represent a very specific image of American pop culture. People who prefer to stay awake at night are more likely to have nightmares. Some research suggests that so-called evening chronotypes tend to experience greater anxiety and higher levels of stress, factors that can influence the intensity and frequency of negative dreams. In 2011, the streaming platform Zediva bought DVDs on the release day and streamed them over the internet for people to watch. According to its founder, there were no copyright issues because people rented the DVD and they simply transmitted it from their server. But Hollywood did not agree. They were sued and had to shut down 1 year later. In 1931, the government of China proposed a plan to use sections of the Great Wall as a base for a modern highway to connect remote regions. However, it was not implemented beyond deteriorated sections of the wall, since there were protests from intellectual sectors such as archaeologists. A large number of North Korean boats that are unmanned or contain corpses have washed up on the coasts of Japan in recent years. They are called the ghost ships of North Korea. Emperor Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire was the first person to propose building the Panama Canal. He said it in 1534. A company called Creative Home Engineering specializes in building steel doors that lead to secret rooms. They have one that is a bookcase that splits in half, a fake electrical panel, or a fireplace that slides open, among others. They also create inventive ways to open those doors, such as moving a lever shaped like a bottle, or even making a specific move on a chessboard for it to open. According to scientists, completely eradicating mosquitoes that transmit diseases would not affect the balance of ecosystems and could even help biodiversity in tropical areas. Their niche as pollinators would be filled by other insects. Tigers have their characteristic stripes not only in their fur, but also on their skin, and each pattern is unique, like fingerprints. The stripes are determined by skin pigmentation, which is why they follow the same design even if the fur is shaved. This unique pattern helps identify them in conservation studies and serves as camouflage among vegetation. Most of Steve Jobs' fortune came from his shares in the Walt Disney Company, not from Apple. This was because he sold the studio Pixar to Disney in 1996, receiving shares in exchange and becoming one of its largest individual shareholders. Genetic studies have revealed that modern humans carry DNA from unknown human species never identified through fossils. These invisible ancestors are called ghost lineages. We do not know what they looked like or exactly where they lived, but they left a mark on our genome. If you plant a seed from a certain type of apple, due to its high genetic variability, it can produce a unique tree with apples that are sweeter, smaller, or a different color than the original fruit. To maintain identical apple varieties, producers use grafting, where a branch from the desired tree is joined to the rootstock or base of another tree, so it grows as a clone. More than 60% of Chinese consumers say they're willing to pay more for products labeled "Made in the United States." This preference is often associated with a perception of higher quality, stricter safety controls, and brand prestige. In categories such as food, technology, and baby products, the country of origin strongly influences the purchase decision, especially among the growing urban middle class. A species of female praying mantis often kills the male while they are mating. She bites off his head and eats it to obtain the nutrients necessary for her offspring. The economy of the game Old School RuneScape is so complex that the developer had to raise the tax in the Grand Exchange, where players gather to buy and sell, to 2% in order to drain gold and remove high-supply items from circulation, thereby reducing inflation within the game. When players found out about this, some of them organized protests. In just 30 seconds, the human brain can generate as much information as everything collected by the Hubble Space Telescope since it began operating. It involves billions of electrical signals, connections, and simultaneous patterns. But just as information is generated, what is not necessary is also erased. That is why sometimes you do not remember what you had for breakfast today. The monkey that appears in the movie The Hangover Part 2 is named Crystal and has her own Wikipedia page. She has appeared in more than 24 different productions between series and films. When a monkey is more successful than you. In the movie Escape from New York, there is a scene that shows what appears to be a computer model of the city. However, no digital effects were used for that shot. They took the city model used for other scenes and placed green adhesive tape on it that glowed under UV light, achieving an effect that looks quite good on a low budget. During the Renaissance, Italian cities such as Florence and Venice invented financial practices that would later be adopted worldwide. The Florentine florin became the standard gold currency in Europe, and Venice created tradable public bonds. This allowed banks such as the Medici to finance kings and popes, an innovation at the time. A woman from New Zealand was arrested in Kazakhstan because locals did not believe that her country of origin was real. The case went viral because some thought she was joking or confusing the name with a fictional region. After clarifying the situation and verifying her passport, she was released. The first female mayor in the United States was elected in 1887. Some men nominated her as a joke, but she won with 60% of the vote, and the ones who tried to troll her were the ones who got trolled. Unlike other animals, the human brain can continue functioning without ingesting glucose during prolonged fasting. It uses ketone bodies as fuel, which are a byproduct of fat breakdown, allowing mobility and cognitive function to be maintained for weeks without destroying skeletal muscle. This helped our ancestors travel long distances until they found new food sources. The zoo in Taiwan, in China, exhibited chow chow dogs painted like pandas during 2024, which led people to accuse it of having fake pandas. The zoo responded that they had always advertised them as panda dogs, mentioning that if people can dye their hair different colors, dogs could do so as well. Seriously, that was their argument. The tongue of the blue whale, the largest animal on the planet, can weigh the equivalent of 2 elephants. It is estimated that it can reach several tons, since this cetacean can measure more than 98 feet and weigh more than 165 tons. Its enormous tongue helps it expel water after gulping large volumes during filter feeding on krill. Scientists managed to bring back to life a plant that is 32,000 years old. It was regenerated from fruit tissue found in Siberian permafrost, the permanently frozen layer of ground. The researchers were able to cultivate 36 plants that grew and produced seeds. Some millions of years ago, there were aquatic sloths that fed on algae from the ocean floor. To be able to dive deeper and deeper, the species developed broader bones. During the Second World War, an Italian doctor prevented the Nazis from taking Jews who were in a hospital because he told them they were being treated for the dangerous Syndrome K. He was lying, but thanks to that, he saved 45 people. The inventor of petroleum jelly, who lived to be 96 years old, claimed that eating a spoonful of his invention daily had helped him maintain good health. Inventor Otto Frederick Rohwedder took 16 years to perfect the first bread slicing machine. His prototype from 1912 burned in a fire, and he did not manage to sell one until 1928. But it was worth it, because in just 5 years, 80% of the bread in the United States was already sold sliced. In the center of Nice, France, there is a giant 98-foot head with a cube inside that houses the administrative office of the city's municipal library. It has 7 floors that are mostly empty, and while during the day it looks like a normal sculpture, at night a lighting scheme reveals the interior. Heath Ledger designed his distinctive Joker look with makeup he bought at a random pharmacy. According to the production team, he experimented by applying it himself in front of a mirror to achieve a messy and disturbing appearance. Later, professional designers refined that base to adapt it for the camera and lighting during filming. In the late 1960s, a group of imposters claimed to be the British rock band The Zombies and performed many concerts across the United States, and people went to see them. 2 of those imposters would later form the famous group ZZ Top. According to official government data, every day, 49% of the population of the United States eats at least one sandwich, which amounts to around 170 million sandwiches daily. Coyotes and badgers sometimes hunt together. The badger locates the prey and the coyote chases it. This cooperation has been observed mainly in North America, where both seek rodents such as ground squirrels. The badger digs tunnels and forces the prey out, while the coyote captures it if it tries to escape. Although they can hunt alone, together they increase their chances of success. A flamin' hot Cheeto shaped like the famous gorilla Harambe sold for $99,000 on eBay. The Porsche 911 was not originally going to be called that. Its planned name was 901, but Peugeot had registered any three-digit name with a zero in the middle, as it traditionally names its cars. Porsche had to change it to 911 at the last minute. In 1875, a rumor spread that a man named James had transported whales to the Great Salt Lake in Utah, United States, with the intention of creating a whaling industry. Although newspapers reported this, it would have been impossible, since the lake is up to 8 times saltier than the ocean and too shallow for a whale to survive. Scientists claim that some coyotes in the United States have learned how traffic lights work and use them to cross streets safely. Many buildings in Hong Kong have holes in the middle. They're called dragon gates. They're designed to allow dragons to pass from the mountains to the sea. To collect more taxes, the government of China implemented in 1998 a scratch-off lottery on official receipts for every purchase. So each ticket came with a potential prize that encouraged customers to demand their receipt, and thus businesses could not hide sales. The measure was a success. Hitler's nephew William fought on the side of the United States Army against his uncle during the Second World War. In South Korea, weddings are taken so seriously that there are agencies that provide fake guests. These companies offer people who attend as acquaintances so that the celebration appears more crowded and prestigious. The practice is related to the social importance of image and networks, since the number of attendees can influence perceptions of the couple's status. It is believed that Phobos, the largest moon of Mars, will crash into the red planet or possibly disintegrate and become a ring within 50 million years. There is a restaurant in the city of Moscow, in Russia, called Twin Stars Diner that is staffed entirely by twins, where they dress alike and are always doing the same thing. Its surreal atmosphere is inspired by the 1963 Soviet film Kingdom of Crooked Mirrors. In Great Britain, there is a law that allows public access for walking in mountains and different natural formations for recreation, even if they are private lands. A glass ball bounces higher than a rubber ball. This is because the rigidity of the material causes less deformation, preventing the loss of force during the bounce. The first film role Edward Norton had was nominated for the Academy Awards. He has never taken acting classes. The life expectancy of people with Down syndrome was 12 years in 1912. It has increased so much that it is now more than 60 years. When Albert Einstein divorced his first wife, he could not afford the alimony she requested, so he offered her an unusual deal. If he ever won the Nobel Prize, he would give her all the prize money. She agreed, and in 1922, when Einstein won, he kept his promise. It amounted to 121,572 Swedish kroner, which were enough to purchase a property in Zurich. Of the 46,000 known spider species, there is only one that is herbivorous, called Bagheera kiplingi. It lives in Central America and feeds mainly on acacia shoots, avoiding hunting. What is curious is that acacias have protective ants, and this spider must use its skill to avoid being detected. It is not known why there are no more herbivorous spiders. Most likely it is because plants do not provide enough protein for their silk. In South Korea, it is well regarded for emails to begin with forced casual small talk, something like mentioning that the weather has been nice in recent days. Pill bugs, those little creatures that roll into a ball, are not actually bugs. They are land crustaceans that are more closely related to shrimp than to any insect. More than 3,200 years ago, in ancient Egypt, there were already official records of workers who missed work along with their excuses. A tablet discovered at the archaeological site of Deir el-Medina detailed the reasons why employees were absent from work. Among them were stung by a scorpion and extreme hangover. As you can see, things have not changed much. The asteroid belt located between Mars and Jupiter is not the debris of a destroyed planet as was once thought. In reality, It is material from a planet that could not form due to Jupiter's orbital resonance. Its gravity is so strong and its mass so large that it prevented formation in that region. Studying those rocks can teach us about the early stages of the solar system. In the last 20 years, more than 1,000 new planets have been discovered outside the solar system. In fact, thanks to space telescopes such as Kepler and TESS, the number now exceeds several thousand. These exoplanets are detected by observing small variations in the light of their stars or slight gravitational movements, and some are even located in potentially habitable zones. There is a law in Germany that prohibits killing invertebrate animals without reason. That is why in all dog shelters in that country, they do not put them to sleep. They do not kill them. The Iranian crown jewels are considered among the most valuable in the world. Their value is so high that they have been used as backing for the value of the Iranian rial, the country's currency, serving as a financial reserve of the state. Cougars are capable of planting around 94,000 plants each year. They do this by eating different herbivores that had previously eaten seeds, which then pass through their digestive system. This contributes to ecosystems. A tarantula can stay alive without eating for up to 2 years, in case you were not afraid enough. Its metabolism is very slow, and it can reduce its activity even more when food is scarce. During those periods, it barely moves and conserves energy, surviving thanks to stored reserves, which allows it to endure long periods without feeding. One of the most searched words on Google is Google. This is often because many people type the name of the search engine directly into the search bar instead of the address bar. The opera song in the movie The Fifth Element was composed to be impossible to sing because the combined notes were extremely difficult to perform. However, when opera singer Inva Mula recorded it, she was able to sing around 90% of the song. Only minimal editing was needed, much to the composer's surprise. Over a period of 10 years, the country of Thailand changed its name 3 times. It began as Siam, but military dictator Plak Phibun renamed it Thailand to emphasize the identity of the Thai ethnic group. After Phibun's defeat in the Second World War, the provisional government renamed it Siam in 1945 to distance itself from his authoritarian past. But in 1949, another coup by Phibun permanently changed it back to Thailand. Japanese kamikaze pilots were allowed to return if they did not find a suitable target to attack. Since one of them had already returned 9 times from his missions, his superiors ordered his execution by firing squad. Researchers from the University of Texas ran out of funding while studying the pirate Morgan and trying to recover items from his sunken ships near the coasts of Panama. When the rum company Captain Morgan found out about this, it provided funding so they could continue. One of the rarest kits from the modeling brand Tamiya is the Moki House, a model house made of expanded polystyrene launched more than 50 years ago during the brand's transition from wooden models to plastic. Although it was a commercial failure at the time, it is now one of the most valuable pieces for fans of the brand and is displayed in a museum. According to a recently published map, 78% of New Zealand's territory is uninhabited based on population density data per square mile. Only 5.2 million people live in that country. Sunsets on Mars are blue. Unlike Earth, where dust and atmospheric molecules scatter blue light and leave reddish tones at sunset, on Mars, the opposite occurs. The fine Martian dust scatters red light more during the day, and at sunset allows bluish tones to dominate around the solar disk, creating a surprising effect. The Guinness Brewery originally signed a lease for 9,000 years, in which it paid only £45 per year. A man named Anthony Gignac spent more than 30 years posing as a Saudi prince, scamming investors and business people. He even managed to obtain a special edition American Express Platinum card with a credit limit of $200 million. But he began to be investigated when a hotel owner noticed that he ordered a dish with pork, despite claiming to be a devout Muslim. He was arrested in 2019. At one point, it was suggested to use volcano craters to dispose of nuclear waste and neutralize it. But this would be impossible because the interior of volcanoes is not hot enough to split the atomic nucleus of uranium, the only way to eliminate its radioactivity. The red panda has no close relatives. There are no species directly related to it, despite being called a panda. The red panda belongs to its own family, Ailuridae, and is not closely related to the giant panda. For years, it was thought to be related to raccoons or bears, But genetic studies confirmed that it is a unique evolutionary line that separated millions of years ago. Finnish police found a dead mosquito while inspecting a stolen car. They analyzed the blood from the mosquito's last meal. In that way, they were able to identify the thief. In 1966, a boy brought 3 giant African snails to Florida and later released them in a garden. This resulted in a population explosion of the species. After 7 years, there were more than 18,000 snails. Because they transmit diseases and are considered invasive species, actions were taken to control them, which took more than 10 years and $1 million in expenses. They reappeared in recent years, most recently in 2023. When the news network CNN was founded in 1980, Chief Executive Ted Turner commissioned a pre-recorded tape to be used in case it was the end of the world. This was only a rumor until a journalist from a website showed a copy of the video he made when he worked there in 2009. In the video, you can only see a military band playing the same melody that played while the Titanic was sinking. To supply the National Football League with footballs for 1 year, the hides of nearly 3,000 cows are used. Each official ball is made of tanned leather, and from a single hide, several panels can be cut, but not enough for many complete balls. Considering the teams, practices, and constant replacements during the season, the annual demand for leather is considerable. To punish people who illegally cut down trees, in some forests, they spray them with fox urine near Christmas time. The urine freezes and does not smell, but when the trees are taken home, it melts and leaves everything smelling disgusting. Broccoli, parsley, Brussels sprouts, and red bell peppers contain more vitamin C per 100 grams than oranges, despite their reputation. But the ones that surpass them all are chili peppers, which can contain up to 4 times more vitamin C than oranges. In the 18th century, Augustus II, King of Poland, imprisoned an alchemist until he managed to transmute metals into gold. After years of failure, he accidentally discovered the formula for hard porcelain, a secret that had been kept by China for millennia, and the sale of this new porcelain brought the king greater profits than gold. Even so, he never released the alchemist so that he would not reveal the secret formula. Our intelligence decreases drastically the more bored we are. Curiosity makes our mind exercise and, therefore, keeps us at 100%. That is why learning new things is always one of the best things we can do. Leonardo DiCaprio turned down the role of Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels. Although he met with director George Lucas, he decided not to accept the role because he felt he was not ready to take on a franchise of that magnitude at the time. Waluigi was not created by Nintendo. He was conceived by a developer from the company Camelot named Fumihide Aoki, and only so that Wario would have a partner for doubles matches and at the same time be Luigi's rival in the game Mario Tennis for the Nintendo 64. Michelin Guide inspectors, who award stars to outstanding restaurants, are not authorized to reveal their work even to close family members. This is to maintain confidentiality when evaluating restaurants. In addition, they travel incognito, pay for their own meals, and use an alias. It is the same corporation that makes tires, by the way. If, from infancy, you are taught to speak 2 languages, when you grow up, you will have more developed cognitive abilities, and in general, you will be smarter. But if you are already grown and only know 1 language, it is never too late. The restaurant TGI Fridays once created a promotion called the Mobile Mistletoe, in which they flew a drone around the restaurant with mistletoe so couples would kiss according to that tradition. The promotion was suspended when one of the drones cut off the tip of a person's nose. How sweet. In the 1980s, United States President Ronald Reagan watched War Games, a movie in which a hacker almost starts a world war. He immediately requested a report to find out whether that was possible in real life. Upon learning that it was, he was so alarmed that he ordered a review of the country's cybersecurity. The result was a massive investment in secure networks, which boosted the development of ARPANET, the precursor to the Internet. Yes, thanks to this movie, the Internet exists as we know it. Only 0.08% of high school football players make it to the NFL, and just 0.02% last more than 4 years in the league. To put it in perspective, out of 1 million athletes, 800 sign a professional contract, and only 160 manage to have a stable career. The average career length for NFL players is only 3.3 years. Space smells like a mixture of burned diesel, gunpowder, and barbecue sauce. This characteristic aroma is mainly caused by stars that are already very old. The country where the most board games are sold is Germany. There is a strong gaming tradition there known as Spielkultur, and each year, fairs such as the one in Essen are held, one of the largest in the world in this sector. Many influential publishers were founded in that country, and awards such as the Spiel des Jahres significantly boost the sales and international popularity of new titles. If you divided an average human weighing 154 pounds by chemical composition and valued the quantities of each element, for example, carbon, calcium, magnesium, iron, among others, at industrial prices, the total would be around $100 to $200, according to estimates. The Alaskan Malamute, which was bred to pull sleds because of its great endurance, became the state dog of Alaska in 2010. It all began with a letter from a kindergarten child who wondered why Alaska did not have an official dog. From there, a campaign and a 3-year legislative process finally recognized this breed as a symbol of the state. These desert beetles raise their rear end to collect water from the fog and channel it to their mouth to hydrate themselves. They position themselves on the top of dunes and orient their bodies toward the moist wind. Tiny droplets condense on their shell, which has areas that attract water and others that repel it, guiding it directly to their mouth. This mechanism allows them to survive in one of the driest environments on the planet without needing to drink from visible sources. In poor countries, bee fences are used to control elephants. Elephants are afraid of bees. This has helped reduce conflicts between elephants and people almost entirely. The best-selling product in stores in Canada is Kraft macaroni and cheese, to the point of being considered almost like the national food, consumed in greater quantity per capita than in any other country. Canadians often serve it for dinner and add extra items such as hot dogs. In France, before the common telegraph became popular, there was a visual telegraph communication system that consisted of a network of towers with movable arms that transmitted coded messages between them, using light and the position of the arms to represent letters and words. Russian cosmonauts always carried a shotgun with them in case they landed in Siberia and had to fight a bear. After an unexpected landing in 1965, when a capsule fell in a wooded and snowy area, the Soviet space program included a special survival weapon in their equipment. It was not only for bears, but also for wolves and for hunting if rescue was delayed. One day on Mercury is equivalent to almost 59 days on planet Earth. That is the time it takes to complete one rotation on its axis. However, one solar day, meaning from sunrise to sunrise, lasts approximately 176 Earth days due to its elliptical orbit and its unique resonance relationship with the Sun. The character Edna Mode in The Incredibles is based on Hollywood costume designer Edith Head, who won a record 8 Academy Awards for costume design. She was known as a perfectionist and had a very distinctive look, always seeking impossible solutions under pressure, similar to Edna. The company Intel, which once dominated the processor world, has been struggling for several years now. Its new next-generation chips have not delivered the expected performance, which cut into its profit margins and led to massive layoffs, including its chief executive officer. Rivals such as AMD, TSMC, and NVIDIA have left it behind. Microsoft decided to include the game Microsoft Solitaire in its operating systems, so that people would feel less intimidated and learn how to use the graphical interface as well as the mouse. The game helped practice actions such as dragging and dropping, clicking, and organizing windows, basic skills that in the 1990s were new for many users coming from systems without a graphical environment. Drowning in real life does not look anything like it does in the movies. It has happened many times that people are watching someone drown and do nothing because they do not realize that is what is happening. In most cases, there are no screams or dramatic movements, but silence and difficulty keeping the head above water. The person usually tries to breathe unsuccessfully and can barely call for help, so recognizing the early signs is key to reacting in time. In Taiwan, there is a roller coaster that disconnects and reconnects to the main rail halfway through the ride to go from a horizontal section to a completely vertical one, and thus create a vertigo effect for all 24 passengers. It is called Gravity Max and was inaugurated in 2002. Actor Keanu Reeves voiced a cat in the movie Keanu, in which comedians Key and Peele must rescue their pet, a cat named Keanu. At first, Reeves had turned down the role, but after watching the trailer on his sister's recommendation, he agreed to do the brief cameo in which he speaks during a dream scene. James Cameron was a truck driver, but one day he decided that the film industry was his calling after he watched Star Wars. After leaving the theater, he was so impressed by the special effects and the storytelling that he began studying directing on his own, reading technical books and breaking down scenes to understand how they were made, until he finally managed to make his way into Hollywood. Sometimes black bears can hibernate while they are high up in a tree. This is especially true for females, which seek large hollows in tall trunks to protect themselves and give birth during the winter. Although their hibernation is not as deep as that of other animals, they can go months without eating or drinking, lowering their metabolism and using stored fat as an energy source. 31 miles from the city of Paris, there lives a wild colony of Bennett's wallabies, animals similar to kangaroos originally from Australia that escaped from a zoo in the 1970s. It is estimated that there are up to 150 individuals that adapted to the environment. Even though K-pop Demon Hunters became the second most watched film of all time on Netflix and is breaking multiple records, Sony, the studio that produced and developed it, only made a net profit of $20 million from the project after deducting production costs. It is expected to become a billion-dollar franchise, and it will all belong to Netflix. There is a lake in Tanzania with such an extreme water pH level, 10.5, that when animals fall into it, they begin to solidify and become mummified, resembling stone statues. Teenagers in Bulgaria are vandalizing statues from the Soviet era to make them look like characters from popular culture. The Russian embassy does not agree and has ordered them to stop doing it. Disney considers its film The Black Cauldron a failure, so much so that it practically ignores its existence. In Disney parks, the only thing related to the Black Cauldron was a food stand in Magic Kingdom that closed in 1993, and a part of the Cinderella Castle attraction in Tokyo, where an animatronic with the cauldron appeared and was closed in 2006. McDonald's sells more than 1 billion Happy Meals with toys each year. For that reason, it is often described as one of the largest toy distributors in the world. Because of the environmental impact this entails, the company has announced different measures to reduce new plastic use by 90% compared to 2018. The movie Psycho from 1960 was the first film to show a complete shot of a toilet. In that scene, it even shows paper being thrown in and the water flushing, something that, at the time, was considered bold and controversial. Director Alfred Hitchcock broke several rules of classic cinema with that decision, seeking greater realism and tension in a story that was already pushing the limits of censorship. The letters Q, W, and X were illegal in Turkey for more than 85 years. The ban began after the alphabet reform promoted by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk in 1928, when the country adopted a modified version of the Latin alphabet. These letters did not exist in official Turkish, but they did in Kurdish, which generated cultural and political tensions for decades. Helicopters have a mechanism that helps prevent them from crashing at full speed into the ground if the engine stops working. It is called auto-rotation. It takes advantage of the air rising from below during the descent, spinning the blades and storing kinetic energy in the rotor disc. This allows the pilot to slow down for a controlled landing, or at least with less force than in a free fall. The casing of the PlayStation 5 console and the cover of the DualSense controller have a micro-texture made up of thousands of tiny icons of the classic PlayStation buttons: X, circle, triangle, square. This is an interesting Easter egg. In addition, it gives it a premium feel. In the movie Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, you can see in one scene an extra carrying what appears to be an ice cream maker. This strange character became very famous among fans and was even given a name: Wilro Hood. Seahorses can move their eyes in different directions independently, like chameleons. This helps them better scan their surroundings and watch out for predators. In addition, this ability allows them to locate small crustaceans and plankton while remaining almost motionless, camouflaged among seaweed and coral. Their independent vision compensates for their slow swimming, since they are not strong swimmers and rely more on stealth than speed. The house used in the series Malcolm in the Middle was rented by the production for a price between $3,000 and $4,000 per day. It was only used for exterior shots, since the interior scenes were filmed on a set. The owner of the house ended up earning around $100,000 during the entire time the series was produced. In the Aztec Empire, cacao had different roles. It was used as tribute, as a medium of payment, and as food. The drink chocolate, made from cacao, also had ritual and aristocratic status. In its ceremonial version, it was flavored with vanilla or chili. An Australian woman posted a selfie on Facebook in which she was holding the winning ticket from a horse race. One of her Facebook friends took the barcode from the photo and claimed the prize before she did. With friends like that, who needs enemies? In the movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker, was the same age as Sir Alec Guinness when he portrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars film. Corn is the result of many centuries of selective cultivation by native civilizations of the American continent. Its wild ancestors can still be found and are called teosinte. Its characteristics changed over time, such as the branching of the stalk, the size of the ears, and the number of kernels per ear. Today, they look unrecognizable compared to their original version. 1 and 2 cent euro coins are the most produced. There are tens of billions in circulation, but this could change since there is debate about whether they should stop being produced because their value may even be lower than the material and production cost. If there were no space between the atoms of planet Earth, it would be the size of a baseball. This is because most matter is composed of empty space between the nucleus and the electrons. If all that structure were compressed to the density of an atomic nucleus, the mass would remain the same, but it would occupy an incredibly small and extremely dense volume. In certain species of penguins, exchanges of food for mating opportunities have been recorded. Similar behaviors have also been observed in chimpanzees. In the case of primates, field studies have documented that some males share meat after a hunt with fertile females, increasing their reproductive chances. These behaviors suggest that the exchange of resources can influence complex social dynamics beyond simple instinct. Small variations in eyebrows can change how a person is perceived. In tests where eyebrows were removed or altered in a photo, it harmed the ability to recognize a face even more than when the eyes were removed. In another study, researchers found that people with more contrasted or fuller eyebrows are perceived as younger. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson is partially responsible for the removal of Pluto from the group of planets in the solar system. When he was director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York in the year 2000, he removed Pluto from the exhibits. Despite receiving letters from children complaining, he was right. Years later, Pluto was reclassified as a dwarf planet. In Australia, there are 2 kangaroos for every person. The figure varies depending on the year and climate conditions, but in favorable seasons, the population can exceed 50 million, driven by abundant grasslands and the reduction of natural predators. Prolonged droughts, however, can significantly decrease those numbers. The guitarist of the 1970s blues band Stone the Crows, Les Harvey, died while they were tuning their instruments in front of 1,000 people due to an electrical short circuit because someone did not properly connect the stage power. The Ford company paid for the Mustang GT to appear in the nearly 10-minute chase scene in the movie Bullitt from 1968 starring Steve McQueen, which helped sell more than 1 million of these cars the following year. The original car used in the film was sold in 2020 for $3.4 million. When climbing to an altitude of more than 63,000 feet, the Armstrong limit is reached. Atmospheric pressure is so low that water evaporates at body temperature, so the air cannot sustain oxygen exchange in the lungs. This is solved by adding pressure, either in cabins or in pressurized suits. Once, Michael Jackson tried to buy Marvel Entertainment because he had always wanted to be Spider-Man. In the early 1990s, when the company was going through financial difficulties, he showed interest in acquiring it, partly to play the superhero in a film adaptation. Although the purchase was never finalized, the story was confirmed years later by figures linked to the company. The favorite toothpaste color among people is blue. Other colors, such as red, have been shown to cause a drop in sales of this product. Blue is usually associated with freshness, cleanliness, and a minty sensation, which psychologically influences the perception of hygiene. Brands take advantage of these marketing studies to reinforce the idea of whiteness and purity even before the consumer tries the product. Asphalt pavement is one of the most recycled materials. For example, in the United States, more than 95% of reclaimed asphalt is reused by adding it to new mixtures. Generally, new asphalt contains an average of 22% reclaimed material. Hatley Castle in Victoria, Canada, built in 1908, has been used in different series and films as Lex Luthor's mansion in Smallville, the Queen Mansion in Arrow, and the school in X-Men and Deadpool. It is currently part of a university. In 1969, The French writer Georges Perec wrote a 300-page novel in French without using a single letter E. In Spanish, the novel is titled El Secuestro, and in the translation, the letter A was not used. On the border between Egypt and Sudan, there are approximately 1,243 miles of land that have not been claimed by either country, or by anyone. A man tried to claim it so his daughter could be a princess. In India, it is a tradition for families to save money in the form of gold jewelry, which they buy, give as gifts, and display at weddings and festivities, representing the family's financial security. It is a good tool to preserve value against inflation and currency devaluation, and it also looks. Maldivian President Mohammed Nasheed once announced a plan for part of the tourism revenue to be used to purchase land in India, Sri Lanka, and even Australia. The idea was to have land available in case the archipelago began to sink due to climate change, but the plan lost momentum when Nasheed was no longer president. At a very early stage of human development, when there is still time before birth, the number of neurons grows at a rate of 250,000 per minute. This process occurs mainly during the first trimester of pregnancy, when the neural tube is forming and the brain is developing at an extraordinary speed. After birth, not as many new neurons are produced. Instead, the connections between them are strengthened and organized. On average, a hedgehog's heart beats 300 times per minute. This rate can vary depending on the species, temperature, and activity level, since during extreme cold or hibernation, its heart rate decreases drastically. The California festival Coachella belongs to Golden Voice, a subsidiary of AEG, which is controlled by billionaire Philip Anschutz. For years, his corporation and foundation made donations to conservative causes and groups, which drew the attention of festival fans since it goes against what it represents. When questioned about this, the businessman has denied it on several occasions. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who walked on the moon as part of the crew of Apollo 11, worked as a car salesman at a dealership in Beverly Hills. This was years after his lunar mission, when he was going through a difficult period in his life. In 6 months, he did not manage to sell a single car. We are more likely to remember something we read if the information is written in an unusual and difficult-to-read font. This is related to a phenomenon called desirable difficulty, where a small additional effort in processing information can improve memory. However, if the typography is too complicated, it can cause frustration and reduce comprehension instead of strengthening learning. 25% of all the bones in our body are in our feet. Each foot has 26 bones, which adds up to more than 50 between both. This complex structure allows balance, support, and shock absorption when walking or running. There is an episode of the Powerpuff Girls in which they sing the entire time in a psychedelic opera rock style. It was banned in the United States and in other countries because there is a segment with strobe lights and alleged subliminal and ideological messages, such as parts resembling crucifixes in destroyed buildings or allegories to communism. But they never really said why it was banned. The first Frankenstein film was made in 1910 by Thomas Edison at his studio. For many years, it was considered lost. Its existence was only known through records, including some photos discovered in Edison's catalog, until the 1970s, when a film collector revealed that he had a complete copy. It is now in the public domain and can be viewed on YouTube. According to a scientific study, students who did not include artificial flavorings, preservatives, or colorings in their lunch had intelligence quotient test scores 14% higher than those who did consume those additives. In real life, Pocahontas was only 11 years old when she met John Smith. He was 28. The romanticized version emerged much later, especially in European accounts. Actress Margot Robbie was such a fan of the Harry Potter books as a teenager that she once lied to her optometrist during an eye exam so she could wear glasses and look more like Harry, her favorite character. Orange cheese originated in the 17th century as a marketing trick. English and Dutch producers added natural coloring to imitate the golden tone of summer cheeses when cows ate fresh grass rich in beta-carotene. In this way, winter cheeses, which were paler due to the cattle's dry diet, appeared premium year-round. This is still done with varieties such as cheddar, for example. McDonald's feeds approximately 1% of the entire world population every day. The company has reported in different years serving tens of millions of people daily in more than 100 countries. Although the exact figure varies over time, its global presence and the number of restaurants mean that a significant fraction of the planet consumes its products every day. In the Japanese animated film Akira, which was released in 1988, you can see a sign that says Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. As we now know, in that year, Tokyo hosted the Olympic Games. Not all stars are balls of burning fire. Some are so cool that you could touch them without vaporizing, at least in theory. The so-called brown dwarfs can have surface temperatures as low as 77 degrees Fahrenheit, similar to a cup of coffee. They are so faint that they are sometimes not even considered stars, but failed stars, and to this day, they remain a cosmic mystery. The money used by Robert De Niro in the film Goodfellas is real. The actor insisted that he did not like how prop money felt in his hand, so the production's prop master gave him his own money that he withdrew from a bank. During the scenes in which it was used, no one was allowed to leave until it was gathered and counted. In 2015, a coin was released in Canada that had the Superman logo on one side. It can be used as normal currency, but only 350,000 were made. There are people who suffer from a psychological disorder called boanthropy, which makes them believe they are cows and attempt to live their lives as cows. When actress Marissa Tomei won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for the film My Cousin Vinny in 1993, many rumors emerged that the presenter had made a mistake when reading the winner's name, since it was uncommon for a comedic role to win. In addition, there were other more renowned actresses competing, but in the end, the Academy clarified that the envelope was correct. The so-called Japanese lantern plant is a popular symbol of life after death. It blooms in winter, but when summer arrives and it dries out, it begins to crack, taking on the appearance of a lantern and revealing the red fruit inside its skeleton. A woman planned to blow herself up with a bomb in Moscow, Russia, during the last New Year's celebration using her phone as a detonator. But her plan failed when her phone company sent her a spam message, causing her to explode while she was alone. No one else was harmed except her. In Italy, the cheese known as Parmigiano Reggiano is so valuable that some banks accept it as collateral for loans. The wheels are stored in guarded vaults as if they were gold bars. In addition, their authenticity is protected with edible microchips. Canada gives a free one-year cultural pass to new citizens and permanent residents that includes free access to more than 1,400 museums, cultural centers, and national parks such as the Art Gallery of Ontario or historic sites managed by Parks Canada. There are fish that, when eaten, cause hallucinations similar to LSD. The effect can last many days. In Arabia, these fish are known as fish that cause strange dreams. This phenomenon is known as ichthyoalienotoxism and has been associated with certain species in the Mediterranean and the Eastern Atlantic that, at certain times, accumulate toxins from the algae they consume. Symptoms can include disorientation, anxiety, and intense visions that last hours or even several days. Michelle Pfeiffer was adopted by a cult when she was beginning her career that forced her to hand over all the money she earned, but she was expelled when she acted in a movie that dealt with those issues. Pilot Jean Boulet broke the helicopter altitude record in 1972 when he reached 40,211 feet. When the engines failed and he had to descend and land without power, he also earned the record for the highest emergency landing ever recorded in a helicopter. Although actor Ernie Hudson played Winston Zeddemore in the film Ghostbusters, after auditioning for the same role in the animated series, he did not get it, since they considered that he did not sound enough like himself. The role went to actor Arsenio Hall. The best-selling product at Walmart, according to the company, is bananas. The company has mentioned on several occasions that they sell billions every year in their stores around the world. Their affordable price, the fact that they are consumed daily, and that they do not require special preparation make them one of the most consistent items in the shopping cart. There are colorless, opaque rainbows called fog bows because they are formed from fog. Unlike common rainbows, they occur when sunlight passes through tiny water droplets suspended in the air, much smaller than raindrops. For that reason, the colors blur, and the arc appears whitish or gray, creating a more subtle and ghostly effect. The actors who portrayed Ferris's parents in Ferris Bueller's Day Off met on the set of the movie and later married in real life, although their marriage did not last long. They separated in 1992 after playing the parents of the protagonist in the film Sleepwalkers. There are between 20,000 and 50,000 different edible plants in the world. However, fewer than 30 are the most commonly consumed, and the ones typically found in supermarkets. This happens because high-yield species with longer shelf life and better resistance during transport are prioritized. In 2014, a tourist who got lost in Iceland was found in the same group that was searching for her. She truly took it literally when she said she was going on a trip to find herself. Your hair contains tiny traces of gold. This metal can be found in microscopic amounts within the human body due to environmental exposure and the minerals present in water and food. However, the concentration is so low that it has no practical or commercial value, and it is part of the many trace elements that naturally circulate in the body. Alice Munro, the Canadian writer who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2013, began writing after reading some books in the bookstore she owned with her husband and thinking, I can write something better than this. She devoted herself to the short story, a genre undervalued by critics at the time, and ended up revolutionizing it. Keeping a prisoner in the state of California, United States, costs more than $75,000 per year. With that amount, you can pay the tuition of any of the most prestigious universities in the world. A man once bought a car and put it in his girlfriend's name. When they broke up, he left it illegally parked at an airport. The car accumulated more than $100,000 in fines that the city charged to the ex-girlfriend. That is some revenge. There is a type of spider in Australia with fangs so strong that they can pierce fingernails and almost any type of shoe. It is the Sydney funnel web spider, whose venom is one of the most potent in the world. Its chelicerae are so robust that they can penetrate soft materials, which is why it is recommended to wear thick footwear and shake out clothing in areas where it lives. Cassie de Picole visited all 196 countries in the world in just 18 and a half months. Her feat broke 2 world records. The pitcher for the San Francisco Giants, Madison Bumgarner, once dated a woman named Madison Bumgarner. Woodpeckers can strike a tree 20 times per second and generally peck a total of 10,000 to 12,000 times each day, consuming resin and insects they find within the wood. After the United Airlines incident in which they struck a doctor for refusing to give up his seat on a flight, the company now offers up to $10,000 to passengers to give up their seat in case a flight is overbooked. In 1987, the company Fisher-Price sold a video camera capable of recording directly onto traditional cassette tapes. Johnny Cash's family refused to allow the famous song Ring of Fire to be used in a hemorrhoid medication commercial. The Guinness World Records organization removed the fat animal categories so that people would stop deliberately overfeeding them. SOS is not actually an acronym. It does not stand for anything. The term was chosen in 1905 as a standardized maritime radio distress signal because of how simple it is to send in Morse code. Just 3 dots, 3 dashes, and 3 dots. There is no reason why points in tennis go from 15 to 30 and then to 40. Someone came up with it one day, and they just continued without asking why. Brian May's father, the guitarist of Queen, helped him build his famous guitar. But at the same time, he was upset because May had abandoned his doctorate. It took 36 years for the guitarist to finally complete his astronomy thesis. Japan officially recognizes Bitcoin as a form of payment, but not as currency. The frequency of a cat's purr is 26 Hz, in case you were wondering. The PlayStation 1 game FIFA 2001 had a special scratch and sniff disc. If you scratched it, it smelled like soccer field grass. The one for Gran Turismo 2 was similar. It smelled like burnt tire. I wonder what the one for Resident Evil smelled like. In 1961, Fidel Castro suspended schools in Cuba for 1 year to form an anti-illiteracy brigade of teachers. When the year ended, more than 700,000 people across the country had learned to read, practically eradicating illiteracy on the island. When he was 14 years old, Tom Anderson, the founder of the social network MySpace, hacked the security of Chase Manhattan Bank, triggering one of the largest FBI raids carried out in California. However, he was not arrested because he was a minor. A few years later, he created MySpace, where he automatically appeared as a friend on every profile. Vikings released ravens at sea to find their way. If the bird flew in a certain direction, they followed its path to locate land. The practice became so common that they adopted the raven as a symbol on war banners. It continued to be used even into the 18th century in Iceland and the Faroe Islands. Michael Bay walked out of the theater while watching the movie Friday the 13th from 2009 because it had too many sex scenes. The curious thing is that he produced that movie. Most Muppets are left-handed. Unlike humans, where only 10% have a dominant left hand, this is for a specific reason. Puppeteers usually use their right hand to control the character's mouth and their left hand to move one of the Muppet's hands. So for comfort, that is the one that moves the most. Since 2017, all 500 of the fastest supercomputers in the world have used the Linux operating system, mainly because it is open source, can handle thousands of cores in parallel, and is free. Buttons on men's and women's clothing are on opposite sides due to historical traditions that may sound absurd today. Men needed quick access to their weapon with their right hand, while upper-class women had buttons on the opposite side to make it easier for attendants to dress them. A study conducted by a university in London found that people's life satisfaction tends to reach its highest point at two ages, 23 and 69. When a cat blinks slowly, it means it trusts you completely. On the other hand, if it blinks quickly, you better run. The Greek philosopher Diogenes lived in a barrel by choice. He rejected social norms and luxury. He said that virtue consisted of living according to nature without hypocrisy, and spent his time criticizing those who spoke of virtue without practicing it. With these principles, he was one of the founders of the Cynic school of philosophy. During the Apollo 16 mission in 1972, astronaut Ken Mattingly lost his wedding ring while adjusting a glove in the spacecraft's microgravity, and it floated away inside the command module until it was lost. Days later, during a spacewalk, pilot John Young found the ring trapped in a panel. There is a bookstore and concert hall located right on the border of the United States and Canada. The stage is in one country, while half of the audience is in the other. Intelligent people are more likely to trust others. Some studies in social psychology have found a correlation between higher cognitive ability and higher levels of interpersonal trust. The scene in the movie Birdman, where Michael Keaton walks through Times Square and people react, was filmed improvisationally with real people, since the production did not have the budget to close the streets and hire extras. The book 100 Million Poems by Raymond Queneau is designed in a format that allows the reader to combine lines to compose poems while maintaining the structure of a sonnet, resulting in a possible number of combinations of 100 trillion, that is, 100 million poems. One day, rocker Ozzy Osbourne joined the Christian protest against himself and his music that was marching outside one of his concerts. In Nashville, Tennessee, United States, there is a themed drive-in theater where you can sit inside a classic car. The Hebrew language became extinct as a native language around the year 200. It was revived in Paris in 1881 when a man and his friends agreed to begin conversing exclusively in that language. Astronomers discovered a giant cloud of gas moving through a supercluster of galaxies. This fireball contains more than 1 trillion suns, measures more than 3 light-years across, and reaches temperatures of billions of degrees. As it moves, it is swallowing entire galaxies. Wow. Last year, it was discovered that Beyoncé's sportswear line, which promotes women's empowerment, was manufactured in sweatshops in Sri Lanka, where women worked long hours for a wage of only €5 per day. A pair of leggings from her brand costs around €145. The longest echo ever recorded in a human-made structure occurred in an old underground fuel storage facility in Scotland, built before the Second World War. When a blank round was fired, the echo reverberated for 112 seconds, more than a minute and a half of pure sound reflection. Scientists at the Allen Telescope always keep champagne in the refrigerator, in case they one day find signs of extraterrestrial life. Gmail is specifically designed so that you can access it even with the worst possible internet connection. Google considers access to Gmail to be very necessary in case of emergencies. Rabbits are so delicate that they can die as a result of a fright. They are not recommended as pets for children under 12 years of age. It would take around 33 million people holding hands to go all the way around the world following the line of the equator. When you are sad, you tend to eat more sweet foods because your emotional state can alter your perception of taste. In the same way, things you do not like taste worse. Raccoons did not exist in Japan until 1977, when, because of a popular anime, many people began importing these animals as pets, and many of them escaped. Dogs can be just as good at finding truffles as pigs. Nowadays, dogs are used more for that activity. The character Venom was not created by Marvel, but by a fan named Randy Schuler, who, in 1982, sent a letter to Marvel proposing a new black suit for Spider-Man with special properties. Later, the writers added the idea that it would be an alien symbiote and decided to buy the idea from Randy for the grand sum of $220. Alaska sourdough starter is a ferment adapted to extreme climates. It contains psychrophilic yeasts, meaning they can withstand the cold, and unique lactic acid bacteria that can activate even below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Its fame began during the gold rush of 1897. Miners carried it in a tin close to their chest to prevent it from freezing. Today, there are bakeries in Alaska that still use the same strains that are more than 100 years old. India is the only country in the world where a maximum retail price system is used on products. Establishments are prohibited from selling them at a higher price than the one indicated. During a kiss, more than 40,000 parasites and 250 different types of bacteria can be exchanged. In reality, most of these microorganisms are part of the normal oral microbiota and do not pose a danger to healthy people. Bryan Cranston revealed that he spent 6 weeks learning to roller skate to film the sequence in which he dances on skates to the rhythm of Queen in the series Malcolm in the Middle. The first recorded blood transfusion occurred in 1667, when Jean-Baptiste transfused sheep's blood into a man. Both died. The pirate Barbarossa was exiled from so many countries that he decided to found his own with the approval of the Ottoman Empire. This refers to Hayreddin Barbarossa, who along with his brother took control of territories in North Africa at the beginning of the 16th century. Later, he offered those lands to the Ottoman Empire and was appointed admiral, turning his domain into an Ottoman province with relative autonomy and great naval power in the Mediterranean. In 1889, Queen Margherita of Italy ordered the first pizza delivery of all time. Actor Leonardo DiCaprio has a collection of more than 80 Star Wars figures from the 1970s and 1980s, and he usually uses a pseudonym to buy them online. According to various reports, he has auctioned some items from his collection, including one of the most expensive Jawa figures with a vinyl cape, valued at more than $20,000. The creators of the popular board game Cards Against Humanity bought an island in the state of Maine, in the United States, to preserve endangered species. They named it Hawaii 2. One of the techniques the Mongols used during a siege was to launch catapults loaded with the bodies of people infected with the plague in order to infect the inhabitants and soldiers. The iconic Betty Boop was inspired by singer Helen Kane, famous in the 1920s for her baby-voiced singing style and personality. Kane sued the Fleischer Studios for plagiarism in 1932, claiming they copied her image and style, but she lost the case when witnesses demonstrated that her style had already been seen in other performers before. The Dutch coffee company Douwe Egberts launched, as part of a campaign, a vending machine with facial recognition technology that gave free coffee to people who yawned. It only served a small number of people, since it was more of an advertising stunt. Green olives and black olives are the same. The color depends on the stage of ripeness at which they are harvested. The philosopher of ancient Greece, Heraclitus, tried to cure an illness with a method he invented, which consisted of sitting in the sun for hours covered in cow manure. It seems his method did not work very well, because he died the next day. There are some official rock, paper, scissors leagues. In countries such as the United States and Japan, tournaments have been organized with formal rules, referees, and cash prizes. Although it seems like a game entirely based on chance, some competitors study psychological patterns and probabilities to try to anticipate their opponent's choice in successive rounds. The silver medalist in javelin throw at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, Julius Yego, mentioned that he learned to throw the javelin by watching YouTube videos, since in his country, Kenya, there were no coaches for that discipline. A pencil can write approximately 50,000 words before it runs out. Butterflies like to drink blood because they are attracted to the smell of salt. I knew deep down they were evil. The food that most people are allergic to is nothing more and nothing less than cow's milk. This allergy is especially common in babies and young children, although many outgrow it over time. It should not be confused with lactose intolerance, which is a digestive issue and not an immune system reaction to milk proteins. Goats are immune to poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac, toxic plants that are normally removed with herbicides. For this reason, groups of goats can be used as ecological controllers that help keep land free of unwanted plants. The iron in our blood and the calcium in our bones come from explosions of giant stars in the past. So it is true when they say that we are made of stardust. The United States considered painting Mount Fuji black during the Second World War as an act of psychological warfare against Japan. The two small holes in Bic pens are made so that the inside has the same air pressure as the outside, allowing the ink to flow normally. Scrappy-Doo, Scooby-Doo's nephew, was introduced in 1979 to revitalize the franchise that was beginning to lose audience. Although he initially helped regain popularity, many fans consider him one of the most hated characters in the Hanna-Barbera universe. Since 1988, he has only appeared in ironic ways, such as when he was the villain in the HBO series Velma. The tradition of dumping a bucket of energy drink on a coach when teams win a championship began in 1984 in an NFL game between the New York Giants and the Washington Redskins, as revenge by a player against his coach for having assigned him an exhausting workout days before the game. Later, it began to be used in other sports, such as the NBA, baseball, and soccer. In Florida, it is legal to break a car window if there is a dog inside that is overheating. Owners who leave their dogs in cars to go into a store should remember to leave a window open or the air conditioning on, and that should be the case everywhere in the world. Japan was invaded by the powerful Mongol army on 2 occasions, but both times they were saved by strong storms that struck those waters. After that, they called those storms the divine winds. While dogs usually recognize their own name after being trained with rewards, according to studies, about 80% of cats recognize their name but choose to ignore it, and parrots simply repeat it without associating it with themselves. A man in China discovered that the tool he had used to crack nuts for 25 years was actually a live grenade. According to the Code of Hammurabi of Babylon, one of the oldest sets of laws in the world, if a bartender watered down beer by adding water, the punishment was execution. It is considered bad manners to write with red ink in Portugal. You should not use it even to draw a heart instead of a dot over the letter I. The architectural jewel of the Inca Empire, Machu Picchu, had been built for less than 50 years when Christopher Columbus established contact with the American continent in 1492, so it is more recent than it appears. All 217 people who live in the town of Whittier in Alaska live in the same 14-story building. The structure has a school, a hospital, a church, and a grocery store. The person who performed Albert Einstein's autopsy stole his brain, even though Einstein said he wanted to be cremated. Currently, his brain is cut into many pieces and distributed in different parts of the world. Oil is not actually as black as it is shown in movies and cartoons. The color varies according to the concentration of hydrocarbon molecules and other compounds. It can even have a greenish. The Lamborghini brand began by making tractors, and still manufactures them to this day. In addition, some of its current models, such as the Aspire BRT, incorporate cutting-edge technologies such as continuously variable transmissions, fuel-efficient engines, GPS, and high-precision hydraulic systems. Alexander the Great knew the name of every soldier he commanded. There were approximately 30,000 people in his army. That is having a good memory. Unlike most of your organs, your brain does not fully develop when puberty ends. In fact, it does not reach its final form until you are between 30 and 40 years old. The prefrontal cortex, related to decision-making, impulse control, and long-term planning, continues maturing during early adulthood through processes such as myelination and the reorganization of neural connections. In art scrolls from the Edo period in Japan, it was common to depict popular flatulence battles. Unfortunately, it is a sport that stopped being practiced some time ago, but I think it should come back. Mr. Potato Head was the first toy to be advertised on television in a commercial. The product was launched in 1952 by the company Hasbro and marked a turning point in advertising aimed at children. In its early days, it did not even include the plastic body, since the pieces were stuck into a real potato. When digitally creating the Gotham City set in the Lego Batman movie, the animators truly paid attention to detail by designing alleys, all kinds of buildings, and other features the city had in the comics. It was so large that if it had been built with real Lego bricks, it would have measured nearly 1,969 feet. Stephen Colbert, host of The Late Show, had a cameo along with his family in the film The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Colbert has always expressed his admiration for The Lord of the Rings. It is easier for dogs to understand voice commands if they are accompanied by body or hand movements. There is a phenomenon called the Google effect, which indicates that being able to access information as quickly and easily as we can today makes your brain rely on that access and not care about storing new things. Gal Gadot, the actress who portrays Wonder Woman on the big screen, served in the Israeli army for 2 years. She also won the Miss Israel beauty pageant in 2004. Princess Leia's iconic hairstyle in Star Wars was inspired by the Mexican Revolution. George Lucas drew inspiration from women fighters such as Clara de la Rocha, a guerrilla, or Adelita, known for her double-braided hairstyle wrapped around her head. Recently, a YouTuber discovered that the game The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64 had support for the console's microphone accessory, and although it was not officially implemented, the commands remained in the game's code. One of them was saying cheese to take a photo, and okiru to wake up characters. According to recent studies, the brain is programmed to forget childhood memories, mainly the memories we store before 4 years of age. It is believed that this happens as the brain grows and undergoes many changes in its structure. There are more than 10,000 species of birds around the world. This diversity makes them one of the most varied groups of vertebrates on the planet. They are found in almost every ecosystem, from tropical rainforests to deserts and polar regions. McDonald's is no longer the fast food restaurant chain with the most locations in the world. It is now the Chinese ice cream and bubble tea chain Michue Ice Cream and Tea, which at the beginning of 2025 had more than 46,000 stores, while McDonald's had 43,000. Third place is Starbucks with 40,000. During the space race of the 1960s, a myth emerged that NASA spent millions creating a zero-gravity pen, while the Soviets simply used pencils. But in reality, a private company developed the space pen with a budget of $1 million, and NASA purchased 400 units, something the Soviet Union later did as well. Pencils were no longer used in space missions because floating wood shavings from sharpening or broken tips could pose a hazard. Believe it or not, your brain is more creative when it is tired. That is why morning people are more creative at night and night owls are more creative in the morning. What a super truth! A $1 coin from 1794 was recently sold for $10,016,875. It is the most expensive coin of all time. A fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shell Shock ride at the Mall of America, named Tara Maldonado, has completed nearly 1 million spins on the attraction over the past 12 years. Her technique has made her a local and social media celebrity, as she goes at least twice a week without fail. Our memory connects memories directly with smells. That is why when you smell something specific, something suddenly appears in your mind that you had not remembered. In 1998, more fast food industry workers died than police officers while doing their jobs in the United States. Doorknobs made of brass disinfect themselves automatically after 8 hours, thanks to the oligodynamic effect. Many people believe that as we grow older, we naturally begin to lose our memory, but in reality, this happens because older people tend to exercise their brains less. In Japan, you can buy eel-flavored ice cream. This flavor is inspired by unagi, a traditional dish that is usually grilled with sweet soy sauce. In some regions, it is offered as a tourist product or limited edition, combining sweet and savory notes. An attempt to create the most expensive cocktail in the world in 2012 was a complete failure after a bottle of cognac from 1788 worth $50,000 fell to the floor and shattered while a customer was inspecting it. Keanu Reeves used a percentage of what he earned from making the movie The Matrix to buy motorcycles for all the stunt doubles who participated in the production. When you learn something only by listening to it, you will remember only 10% of the information after 72 hours. Whereas if you are supported by images, the percentage rises to 65%. 100 million years ago, there were primitive crocodiles that, in addition to being good swimmers, could gallop across plains like horses. Figs have a close relationship with wasps in order to be pollinated. A wasp must lay its eggs inside a fig and then remains there, unable to leave. Some figs become pollinated and others serve for new wasps to hatch, almost like a nest. Pollinated figs have enzymes that cause the wasp to dissolve inside. But do not worry, the figs you buy at the supermarket come from a variety domesticated thousands of years ago that is propagated and does not require wasps. According to a report from 2022, Netflix accounts for nearly 15% of global internet bandwidth usage on average, followed by YouTube in second place. This varies on days when series or films are released, or even during hours when more people are actively watching content. According to an approximate calculation made by scientists, The brain can store approximately 2.5 petabytes of information. That is 2.5 million gigabytes, or 300 years of videos and movies. At 62 years old, Alexander Graham Bell helped invent a boat that broke a speed record when it reached 71 miles per hour. The boat did not have a telephone. Although laughing is almost an immediate reflex when we see or experience something funny, the truth is that for our body, it is a very complex activity that requires the involvement of 5 areas of the brain. On average, a Bugatti owner has around 84 cars, 3 jets, and a yacht. When you sleep, your neurons are almost as active as when you are awake. They can even be more active. That is why you sometimes dream all kinds of strange things. During the REM sleep phase, brain activity closely resembles that of wakefulness, especially in areas related to emotions and imagery. At the same time, activity decreases in regions that regulate logic, which explains the surreal nature of many dreams. Pringles chips are shaped like a hyperbolic paraboloid. This geometric figure, also known as an anticlastic surface, gives them structural strength and allows them to be stacked uniformly inside the container without breaking easily. The people you are with, the place where you are, and the moment when you learn something specific will significantly affect how quickly and how deeply that new knowledge becomes rooted in your brain. Many pandas urinate while doing a handstand to mark trees. This behavior, observed in Ailuropoda melanoleuca, allows them to place their scent higher and thus communicate their presence to other individuals, especially during the breeding season. By lifting themselves onto their front paws, they make the signal more visible and longer lasting in their mountainous environment. Kangaroo rats native to North America are so well adapted to desert life that they could spend their entire lives without drinking a single drop of water. This is because their kidneys function very efficiently, and they obtain water from other foods through a metabolic process called oxidative phosphorylation. Due to regulations in different countries regarding elevator safety, the door close buttons almost never function properly, only during emergency mode, or sometimes they are not even connected. This can vary depending on whether the elevator serves many people or if it is private. When Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, decided to organize a gala dinner in his honor. However, many people were against it and organized a boycott of the event. When the chief executive officer of Coca-Cola learned about this, he intervened, stating that if Atlanta could not properly honor a Nobel Prize winner, they would be forced to move their company elsewhere. In the end, the dinner was fully attended. The Count from Sesame Street's love of numbers is not something invented out of nowhere. In traditional vampire tales, it is said that they commonly have arithmomania, which is a condition consisting of the need to be constantly counting and performing mathematical operations all the time. Only one airplane was allowed to take off after all flights were banned in the United States on the day of the attack on the Twin Towers. It was a plane carrying an antidote for a man who had been bitten by a highly venomous snake. While in the European Union, there are 587 automobiles per 1,000 people, in the United States, there are up to 910 cars per 1,000. This vehicle count increases greatly in certain microstates, such as San Marino with 1,600 or Andorra with 1,200. And the places with the lowest numbers are Somalia with 5, Togo with 8, and Madagascar with 9 per 1,000 people. OLED screens do not need a backlight like LCD screens. Each pixel can light itself, allowing for deep blacks and intense colors. This also makes them thinner and more flexible, ideal for curved or foldable displays. However, they wear out faster and can experience burn-in, meaning an image can remain marked if it stays fixed for a long time. Eating a lot of chocolate helps keep your brain healthy because of the amounts of dopamine that are released when you consume it. Cocoa contains compounds such as flavonoids and small amounts of theobromine that can promote cerebral blood flow and create a feeling of pleasure. However, the benefits are more closely associated with dark chocolate and in moderate portions, since excess sugar can have negative effects on health. The record for an actor with the most films released in a single year belongs to Prem Nazir, who in 1979 appeared in 39 films. He also holds the record for the most leading roles in history. All of them were in Mollywood, the segment of Indian cinema dedicated to producing films in Malayalam, a regional language. There is not a single bridge that crosses the Amazon River. Along its more than 3,730 miles in length, the enormous width of the channel, seasonal flooding, and dense jungle have historically made it difficult to build permanent infrastructure over its main stretch. If you want to see Galileo Galilei's middle finger, you can go to Florence in Italy. They have it on display in a museum, in case you want to know what it feels like to have the father of science insult you from the afterlife. During the economic crisis of 2008, the combined wealth of all billionaires fell by nearly 50%. However, by 2011, this loss had been fully recovered, while the median household net worth fell 39% between 2008 and 2010. Princess Leia's iconic hairstyle was inspired by the soldaderas, also known as Adelitas, Mexican rebels who fought in the revolution in the early 20th century. Coral is so similar to human bones in composition that it is currently used in some treatments to repair bones. In cultures that have not been exposed to Western music, dissonant chords are normal and people perceive them as pleasant, unlike us. Crows in captivity learn to speak even better than parrots. Some corvid species, such as crows and starlings, have a great capacity for vocal imitation and can reproduce human words with surprising clarity. In addition, they are extremely intelligent, capable of solving complex problems and associating sounds with specific people, which makes their learning more contextual than that of many parrots. It was once believed that kissing a donkey helped cure toothaches. This belief was part of ancient folk remedies in different regions of Europe, where certain animals were thought to have healing properties. In times when dentistry was very limited, people turned to symbolic rituals or superstitions in the hope of relieving infections or cavities, which in reality required medical treatment. After the manga One Piece, the second best-selling comic of all time is Asterix from France, with more than 390 million copies and translations into more than 110 languages. It is such a successful franchise that it even has a theme park near Paris that had a record attendance of nearly 2.5 million people in 2024. Double-stuffed Oreo cookies actually have 186% more filling than the regular ones. When Microsoft shut down the online multiplayer service for Halo 2, a player left his Xbox running for an entire month to prevent the shutdown, but they removed him anyway. The white bellbird has a courtship ritual that consists of approaching the female and screaming at her at more than 125 decibels from just a few inches away, which represents the record for the loudest sound of any bird. The volume is so extreme that researchers wonder how they avoid hearing damage. Actress Elizabeth Taylor divorced a total of 7 times over a period of 45 years, giving her an average of 1 divorce every 6.4 years. In the entertainment world, she is only matched by actress Zsa Zsa Gabor, with 7 divorces in 40 years. The highest wave ever surfed was the size of a 10-story building. The record was achieved in Nazaré, Portugal, a beach famous for its giant waves generated by an underwater canyon that amplifies the power of the Atlantic. These walls of water can exceed 66 feet in height and require special equipment and jet skis so that surfers can position themselves safely. There are more fake flamingos in the world than real flamingos. Plastic flamingos became popular in gardens in the United States starting in the 1950s, becoming a widespread kitsch symbol. Meanwhile, wild populations, although numerous in certain regions, are concentrated in specific habitats, so the mass production of decorations ended up far exceeding the real birds. There is a village in France that generates 10% of its electricity consumption from a type of cheese called bouffer, using the leftovers from its production that create biogas. Video game creator and director Hideo Kojima appears as a character in the game Metal Gear Solid 5 in a rescue mission. If you manage to rescue him, you can recruit him as a soldier for your base. The library considered the most isolated in the world is located on the most remote inhabited island, Tristan da Cunha. At St. Mary's School, there's a library with a few books as a community resource. To reach that island, you must depart by boat from Cape Town, South Africa. Once, soccer player Mohamed Anas from Ghana accidentally thanked his wife and his girlfriend in an interview after a game ended. The moment went viral on social media because he immediately tried to correct himself, saying that he meant to say wife twice. The clip circulated widely and became one of the most talked about sports bloopers of that year. There were more than 10 million koalas in Australia before British settlers arrived. Now there are only 43,000 in the wild. The drastic decline is mainly due to massive hunting for their fur in past centuries, habitat loss from urbanization and agriculture, as well as increasingly intense wildfires that destroy large areas of eucalyptus, their main food source. While in Australia, Michael Jackson's song Beat It only reached number 3 on the music charts, the parody Eat It by musician Weird Al Yankovic reached number 1. The single won the Grammy Award for Best Comedy Recording in 1984. In India, there are living bridges. They are made from intertwined roots of different trees. They withstand floods and become stronger over time. Some are more than 500 years old and remain sturdy to this day. The first recognized stunt double was Frank Hanaway, who obtained a role in the movie The Great Train Robbery from 1903 as one of the bandits, thanks to his ability to fall off a horse without getting hurt. According to studies that were conducted, 48% of all revenue from the holiday season ballet performances is generated by the Nutcracker, which has become a full tradition. The Dani language of New Guinea uses only 2 basic terms to distinguish among all colors: Mili for cool and dark tones such as blue, green, and black, and Mola for warm and light tones such as red, yellow, and white. Their system organizes colors by light and temperature according to how they are perceived, very different from the method we use of naming each color separately. One day, some brothers managed to sell a fake artwork that they claimed was by the famous painter Francisco de Goya. They sold it for 1.5 million euros. Later, they realized that the money was fake as well. They were practically photocopies of bills. They found out when they tried to deposit them in the bank. How smart. The largest and heaviest Lego model ever made was a life-size Star Wars X-Wing. It had 5.3 million bricks. From one wingtip to the other, it measured 44 feet and weighed 25 short tons. It was built by 32 master builders with a total of 17,000 hours of work. It was presented in Times Square, New York, and later displayed at Legoland, California. In countries where voting is mandatory, even if the penalties are not very severe, such as in Australia, turnout is much higher than in other places. But phenomena such as the so-called donkey vote also occur, where candidates who appear first on the ballot receive more votes. In January 2016, a man walked into a Walmart dressed as a Walmart employee. He told the cashier that she was needed in the office, rang up the customers who were waiting, emptied the cash register, and calmly walked out. It is believed that he robbed 3 other stores in the same way. People and the media tend to remember or exaggerate predictions that come true, while incorrect ones are ignored as if they never existed, even though there are more of them. This phenomenon was named the Jeane Dixon effect. Dixon was a famous astrologer and supposed psychic to whom some predictions that came true are attributed, but many more that failed. 99% of Antarctica is covered in ice. In the areas where there is no ice, vegetation is beginning to appear as a result of climate change. There will be more and more plants in that place. Actor Hugh Jackman once worked as a birthday party clown. He only earned $50 per party, had no magic tricks, and once a 6-year-old boy told him he was the worst clown he had ever seen. Babies cannot taste salt until they are 4 months old. Before that time, they mainly react to sweet and bitter flavors, since their taste receptors are still developing. This initial lack of sensitivity also explains why breast milk, naturally low in salt and slightly sweet, is especially suitable for their earliest stages of life. The reason the most popular traditional way to save money is a piggy bank shaped like a pig is because of an old wordplay. In Middle English, pig was a type of clay used to make jars where coins were stored. Over time, the word used to define the clay disappeared, and craftsmen associated it with pig, which means a pig. In addition, the pig represents prosperity and good luck in some European countries, so it remained as a tradition. The oldest stadium in the world still in operation is Sandygate, home of the semi-professional soccer club Hallam FC in Sheffield, United Kingdom. It was inaugurated in 1804 and has a capacity of 1,665 people. The first inter-club match in the world was played there in 1860. The stadium has also been used for cricket matches. Allied forces used inflatable tanks and rubber airplanes to deceive the Germans in the Second World War. They made so many that at one point they caused the Germans to withdraw during an attack. This bloodhound joined a half marathon that was taking place in Alabama, United States, after his owner let him out to go to the bathroom by a little tree. He ran the entire course and finished in 7th place. Here we can see him with his medal. Jellyfish are not considered fish because they do not have a brain, heart, or bones. They actually belong to the group of cnidarians and are made up almost entirely of water. Their nervous system is a simple network that allows them to react to stimuli, and some species have existed for more than 500 million years, long before the first fish. In 1897, the city of New York inaugurated a pneumatic tube system of more than 1 mile that connected several buildings of the Postal Service. On the first day, employees sent things such as a package of books, a dozen eggs, and a cat. All of this through the tubes that would later transport 95,000 letters per day. Nothing happened to the cat. The Central Library of Harvard University was born because of the Titanic. One of its alumni, Elkins Widener, was among the victims. His mother donated $2 million to build the library as a tribute, which to this day bears his last name and has more than 20 million different books. The inflatable fabric tube men that dance in the air and serve as advertising for many businesses are being banned in many cities because they interfere with visual harmony. Salvador Dali used to pay with a check in restaurants, but he would draw something on the check. He did it because he knew that no one would want to cash it. In Hawaii, a tourist dies almost every week in accidents while doing everyday activities such as swimming, climbing, or simply driving. Many of these deaths are related to dangerous ocean currents, falls on volcanic trails, or lack of experience in the ocean. Local authorities insist on respecting warnings, checking weather conditions, and not underestimating the natural risks of the islands. Hyenas, which are believed to be scavengers, actually hunt and kill 95% of their prey. The most studied species, Crocuta crocuta, hunts in groups using coordinated strategies and can travel long distances in search of food. Their powerful jaws allow them to crush bones and consume nearly the entire animal, which has contributed to their unfair reputation of relying only on carrion. When swimmer Michael Phelps won his 13th individual gold medal at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, he broke a record that was more than 2,000 years old, since he surpassed the athlete Leonidas of Rhodes, who won 12 gold medals in the ancient Olympic Games. Freeze-dried instant coffee is produced by brewing liquid coffee, freezing it, and removing the ice through sublimation using vacuum chambers. It is a method that may seem excessive, but it is the best way to preserve the aromas and oils of the coffee, unlike the traditional method of drying it with hot air. The famous jazz singer Ella Fitzgerald had such perfect pitch in her voice that the musicians in her band tuned their instruments according to her voice. In New Jersey, United States, there is a law that makes it illegal to commit a violent crime while wearing a bulletproof vest. The rule does not simply prohibit wearing it, but increases the severity of the charge if the person is wearing it while committing certain serious crimes. The intention is to discourage premeditated acts in which someone prepares to face armed resistance or the police. The streets in the Garland neighborhood in Texas have names of South Park characters, including Cartman Road, Garrison Way, Mackey Street, and McCormick Street. The reason for this is that the names of the streets in these housing developments are decided by real estate companies, and in this case, it was apparently a fan of the series who chose them. The city where the movie The Truman Show takes place, which is supposed to be a giant set to film Truman's life, actually exists in real life. It is called Seaside, in Florida. Its construction began in 1981. Its landscapes feature pastel-colored houses that give it a manufactured aesthetic. It really looks like a set. Scientists discovered that Fulgoromorpha insects have their legs connected by what appears to be a system of gears that they use to synchronize their movement when they are about to jump. It is the first gear system in a living being that is known. Most of the earliest pirate flags were red, not black. The red color indicated that there would be no quarter, meaning no mercy would be given if the attacked crew offered resistance. Over time, the black flag with skulls and symbols such as hourglasses became more common because it functioned as a warning. Surrendering could mean surviving without a fight. A German architect named Hermann Zorgel proposed in the first half of the 20th century Atlantropa, a plan to lower the level of the Mediterranean Sea by up to 656 feet by building dams in Gibraltar and other strategic points, promising, among other things, to irrigate the Sahara, generate large amounts of electricity, and create new arable land. But the plan was never carried out. Among the foods that have more vitamin C per gram than an orange are guavas, black currants, red bell peppers, green kiwi, strawberries, broccoli, parsley, spinach, Brussels sprouts, among others. The reputation oranges have regarding vitamin C comes more from marketing campaigns than from their actual properties. The names of the cities Boston and Portland in Oregon, United States, were decided with a coin toss. Portland would be called Boston and vice versa. In 1845, two of the settlement's founders, one originally from Boston and the other from Portland in Maine, wagered the name by flipping a coin. Portland won 2 out of 3 tosses, and that is how it was officially recorded. In 1992, the comedic musician Weird Al Yankovic released Smells Like Nirvana, a parody of Nirvana's hit Smells Like Teen Spirit. Before doing so, he called Kurt Cobain to ask for permission, and Cobain agreed only after he was told it would not be about food wordplay, as his parodies usually were, but about how difficult it is to understand the band's lyrics. In the end, the satirical song was very successful. And, by the way, some extras from the original video appear in the parody video. It is worth watching. When Beethoven became deaf, he realized that if he bit down on a metal rod connected to his piano, he could understand what he was playing through vibrations. It is possible to conduct sound through bones. After the film based on the video game Assassin's Creed did not achieve the expected box office success in 2016, other films based on video games that were in development, such as The Sims and Mega Man, were canceled by Disney, which had just acquired Fox. Around 1 million dogs have been named as primary beneficiaries in their owners' wills in the United States. In most cases, the money is not given directly to the animal, but instead, a trust is created and managed by a person responsible for covering their care, food, and veterinary expenses, ensuring their well-being even after the owner's death. Because the rotation of the Earth changes over time, during the era when dinosaurs lived, days lasted only 23 hours. This is mainly due to the gravitational influence of the Moon, which gradually slows the planet's rotation through tidal forces. More than 60 million years ago, the year had more days than it does now, although each one was slightly shorter than today's days. In the city of Dover, New Hampshire, United States, there is a commemorative plaque at the place where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in 1983. In addition, near where Kevin Eastman's house was located, besides there being a museum, there is a commemorative manhole cover in the street. Generally, restaurants make an 80% profit on beverages, which are their main source of earnings. From regular food, they only obtain 10% or less. This is because soft drinks, coffee, and alcoholic beverages have very low production costs compared to their sale price, while dishes involve perishable ingredients, labor, waste, and higher operating expenses such as kitchen and storage. Chinese mathematician Yitang Zhang was unable to find a job in his field after graduating and had to work as a delivery driver for a restaurant in New York. He later discovered the solution to a mathematical problem that had gone unsolved for 150 years and won many awards. A YouTuber opened a fake McDonald's restaurant for 1 day in Iceland, one of the few countries in the world that does not have locations of this establishment. Although he could not sell original hamburgers from the restaurant, he managed to place a statue of Ronald McDonald and had on display the last real McDonald's hamburger that was sold in that country in 2009, which, surprisingly, does not look spoiled. There are more than 1,300 Brazilian soccer players playing outside their country in leagues around the world. In second place is France, with almost 1,100, and in third place, Argentina, with nearly 1,000. Charlie Chaplin's daughter portrayed Charlie Chaplin's mother in a film about the life of Charlie Chaplin titled Chaplin in 1992. William Shakespeare wore earrings that were fashionable at the time among poets. In several portraits attributed to the Elizabethan era, he is depicted with an earring in his left ear, an accessory that some associated with artistic sensitivity or intellectual status. There are more than 400 lakes beneath the ice sheet of Antarctica. Some could rival the largest lakes in the world. They remain hidden under miles of ice and stay liquid thanks to geothermal heat and pressure. One of the most well-known is Lake Vostok, which has been isolated for millions of years, making it a key site for studying extreme life forms and the conditions of other icy worlds. The original Snow White movie was going to have 16 dwarfs instead of 7. They were included in the preliminary character sketches. This came to light almost 80 years after the film's release, when pieces of the original art from 1937 were auctioned. A murmuration of starlings is a natural phenomenon in which thousands of starlings fly in synchrony, forming interesting patterns in the sky, moving like a cloud of a single organism in a rapid and aesthetic way. Each bird mainly responds to its 7 nearest neighbors, creating large-scale correlations that have been studied for a long time. They do it as a social mechanism and to defend themselves from predators. In 2014, Taylor Swift accidentally released 8 seconds of white noise on iTunes. It immediately became #1 in Canada before it was deleted. The price per download was $1.29. The Japanese believe that black cats bring good luck, especially for single women. On this side of the world, we believe completely the opposite. Well, I do not believe in that, but some people do. South Africa is the only country that has developed its own nuclear weapons and then voluntarily dismantled them. It built several during the Cold War and eliminated them in the early 1990s, before the end of the apartheid regime. It later joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, allowing international inspections and setting a unique precedent in nuclear history. The first Honda motorcycles, manufactured in 1946, were adapted to run on turpentine, which is a liquid obtained by distilling the resin of pine trees and other conifers, due to the gasoline shortage. In addition, the first engines they used came from surplus military radios. The cotton-top tamarin is a monkey native to northwestern Colombia that lives its entire life in trees. They do not even come down to drink water. They obtain it from fruit or directly from environmental moisture. They are endangered due to deforestation. Unrolling transparent tape inside a vacuum chamber produces enough radiation to see a person's bones with X-rays. The most expensive Broadway musical was Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, which cost about $75 million. Because of the difficulty of staging it, it had to be modified many times since the acrobats were constantly getting injured. It was only performed for 3 years, from 2011 to 2014. Crows can remember human faces they consider dangerous for years, since they share that information with other crows in their group. Experiments with masks demonstrated their social learning. When a crow labels someone as bad, the reputation can be passed down even across generations. On average, airplane tickets cost 30% more if the flight departs on Friday or Saturday, while Monday through Thursday is when they are cheaper. This happens because demand increases before the weekend, especially for short tourist trips. Airlines adjust their prices based on expected occupancy, which is why buying in advance and avoiding peak seasons also makes a difference. The 4 major airlines in the United States often lose money flying passengers, but they stay afloat thanks to loyalty programs and credit card agreements. These deals, which sell miles to banks and partners, generate enormous revenue and sustain the industry. Otherwise, airline tickets would be much more expensive. One day, the experts from the show Mythbusters discovered a new type of explosive that could be made with very common materials. Realizing the danger of this, they deleted what they had recorded and even warned authorities about the possibility of the combination being misused. The first credit cards did not have any type of security. The merchants made an imprint with carbon paper of the embossed numbers on the card and kept it, along with the signature, to later place them in a file that was sent to the bank, where the transactions were recorded. Reindeer eyes change color depending on the season of the year. During the summer, they are golden, and in the winter, they are blue. This change is due to a modification in an internal layer called the tapetum lucidum, which reflects light and improves night vision. In winter, when there is less light in the Arctic, the blue color helps capture the limited available illumination more effectively. A woman named Chow Smith ran 7 marathons in 7 consecutive days on 7 different continents. Do not ask how on earth she did it, but she did it. In addition, it was to celebrate her 70th birthday, and you are sitting there watching a screen. On a coast near Sydney, Australia, there is an abandoned ship on which trees began to grow. For that reason, it is now called the Floating Forest. It is a ship built in 1911 called SS Airfield, which was retired from service in 1972 and whose recycling was never completed. In zoos around the world, for better care of young cheetahs, they assign companion dogs for them to play with and learn social cues. This helps reduce the stress of living in captivity. Dexter Holland, the lead singer of the band The Offspring, has a doctorate in molecular biology. He has a pilot's license and once flew around the world alone in an airplane in 10 days. And he also owns a hot sauce company. During the development of the game GoldenEye 007 for Nintendo 64, the developers wanted to implement a system to reload your gun that involved removing and reinserting the rumble pack from the Nintendo controller each time you needed to reload. Obviously, this was not carried out. It was not practical at all. In the movie The Theory of Everything, the term black hole is used many times in scenes set in 1963. However, this would not have been possible because, although the concept already existed, at first it was called singularity until the term black hole was popularized by physicist John Wheeler in 1967. At the highest point of the Cathedral of Milan, there is a statue called the Golden Virgin of the Duomo, which imposes the rule that it must remain the highest point in the city. This tradition dates back to when the cathedral's 328 feet were the tallest point. Since then, 3 taller buildings have had to construct their own replica so that the Virgin remains the summit of the city. The word for kangaroo in Mandarin Chinese literally translates as big rat. The term is da shu, an expression that emerged when early Europeans described the animal in Asia and compared it to a large rodent. It is a curious example of how some foreign names were adapted based on physical resemblance rather than scientific classification. An eruption of the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii in 2018 altered the terrain so much with solidified lava that it added extra land to the island equivalent to 496 soccer fields. In 1969, Seiko launched the Astron, the world's first quartz watch, which was so precise compared to mechanical watches that instead of losing seconds each day, it lost only 5 seconds per month. It cost the same as a compact car, but it marked a complete shift in the watch industry, as Seiko opened its patents so other manufacturers could make their own quartz movements. During the first 40 million years of the existence of trees, wood was not biodegradable. Everything returned to normal once a fungus evolved that was able to decompose all those trees. Before those fungi capable of breaking down lignin appeared, enormous amounts of trunks accumulated without rotting, which contributed to the formation of large coal deposits that we use today as fossil fuel. Harley-Davidson motorcycles are twice as likely to experience mechanical issues as the other 3 leading brands on the market. Even so, they remain the most famous motorcycles. Much of their success is due to their strong cultural identity, their distinctive sound, and the loyalty of their community of followers. For many, they represent a lifestyle associated with freedom, the open road, and American tradition, rather than just a means of transportation. In 1987, a squirrel chewed through a cable that carried all the information for the computers of the NASDAQ stock market, causing it to be out of service for almost 90 minutes. Nearly 20 million shares went untraded that day. In 1994, something similar happened with another squirrel that halted the market for more than half an hour. In the 1990s, the Sultan of Brunei and his brother accumulated a collection of thousands of cars, most of them luxury vehicles. Years later, some were returned to the state, but according to recently released photos, the remaining thousands of cars were left abandoned without maintenance, gathering dust, and there are no plans to sell them or put them on display.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.